The cup never hit the floor. It slipped from her hand the moment I stepped out from behind the bookshelf, but it didn't fall, not all the way. Her fingers fumbled, caught the handle midair, and all she managed to say was, "Kurt." I held up one finger. "Just one. Don't," I whispered. My voice cracked like it hadn't been used in weeks. You know what's funny? The tea was still steaming. A fresh cup. There were two on the table, and one of them wasn't mine. The second she realized I knew, she stopped moving. Like prey. Wide-eyed. Frozen. I looked past her, toward the back hallway. His shoes were still by the door. Size 12, worn at the edges. He had a limp, some sports injury, she once told me, so his soles wore unevenly. He was still here. I didn't say a word. She finally exhaled and stepped toward me. "Please don't make this a scene." A scene? The sentence bounced around my skull like a pinball machine. I thought about the two mugs, the undone button at her neck, the music still playing softly from her phone. I had walked into the house on instinct. I was supposed to be at my cousin's barbecue across town, but I left early. Something felt off. There was this dull, nagging hum in my chest, like when you forget to turn off the stove but can't remember what you were cooking. And now, here I was, staring at a woman who used to trace the edge of my jaw with her thumb when I couldn't sleep. A woman who told me I was the only man she had ever truly trusted. She stepped closer again, but I moved back. My hand hit the bookshelf behind me, hard. A frame toppled, hit the ground, cracked. We both flinched, but not at the sound. At the silence that followed. Then, from the hallway, a cough. A man's voice. "Elora?" She didn't answer. He stepped into view. His hair was wet. My towel over his shoulder. He froze when he saw me. The man, the myth, the homewrecker, standing barefoot in my living room, in my house, next to my wife. He opened his mouth, closed it, looked at her, then at me. And then, this is the part I'll never forget, Elora sighed, like I had put her in this uncomfortable position. "Curtis, it didn't mean anything," she said quietly. Those 4 words. That exact tone. Like she was telling me the chicken had burned. Something inside me stilled. I smiled. Just for a second. It wasn't sarcastic. It wasn't sad. It was peaceful. Then I turned around, stepped over the broken frame, opened the door, and walked out. No shouting. No threats. No melodrama. I didn't even close the door behind me. But you don't come here just for the exit. You're wondering what happened after. Because walking out wasn't the end. It was the beginning of the most unexpected chapter of my life. The second I stepped outside, the world felt louder. The neighbor's lawn sprinkler clicked like it was mocking me. Somewhere, a dog barked 3 times. My car sat in the driveway, sun bouncing off its windshield, looking as out of place as I felt. I stood there for a full minute, not moving, not breathing right, just absorbing. You'd think after seeing your wife's affair partner in your house, wearing your towel, you'd scream or break something. I did neither. I just got into the car. I didn't even know where I was going. I drove aimlessly, letting the turns take me wherever. My phone buzzed nonstop in the passenger seat, her name lighting up the screen again and again like an alarm I refused to shut off. I finally pulled over into an empty supermarket parking lot and stared at the empty rows of cars, trying to feel anything other than the heavy quiet inside my chest. I opened the last message she sent. "Please don't just disappear. Come back and we'll talk." No apology. No remorse. No panic. Just logistics. Like she was trying to schedule a grocery delivery. I looked up through the windshield at nothing and whispered to myself, did I really let it get this far? And the answer was yes. I did. Because I saw it. The cracks. The shift. The night she didn't say goodnight. The sudden fragrance on her that wasn't in our bathroom cabinet. The way her laugh changed when she was on the phone with coworkers. I wanted not to believe it. That was the truth. It was easier to assume I was imagining things than face the possibility that the person I trusted most was sliding away from me. Every time she came home late, I told myself traffic was bad. Every time she locked her phone, I convinced myself it was just updates or privacy. But deep down, I knew. And I did nothing. I guess I always thought if I just loved her enough, she'd find her way back. But she didn't. When I finally started driving again, I ended up somewhere I hadn't been in over a decade. The old train yard near Oakmere Bridge. It's where I used to go in college when I needed to disappear without actually leaving. It was quiet there. Still, I parked near the rusted chain-link fence and got out. The rails were coated in dust, weeds creeping between the ties. I sat on one of the old stone barriers and just stared out into the stillness, waiting for clarity that never came. That's when my phone buzzed again, this time not from her. A name I hadn't seen in years flashed across the screen. Gideon. We hadn't spoken since my wedding. He was my best man. Moved out west. We drifted. He never liked Elora much. Said something about her smile being too calculated. I told him he was paranoid. I answered, unsure why. Kurt. His voice cracked through the line. Hey, I said, sounding like someone else. He paused. You okay? I almost laughed. Not even a little. He exhaled, long and slow. I heard. I blinked. What do you mean you heard? She called me, he said, his voice tightening. This morning. Said you might be acting irrationally, and I should reach out. I stared ahead at the rust-colored horizon. Of course she did. She said it was complicated, he added. But she also said the guy is married. My chest tightened. So she's destroying 2 homes. Classic. There was another long pause. Then he said, Curtis, this wasn't a one-time thing. She's been seeing this guy for over a year. I froze. How do you know that? She told my sister. Bragged, even. Said she was finally with someone who made her feel alive again. That sentence cut through me sharper than anything I'd read on her iPad. Alive again? So I wasn't enough. I'd known that. I'd felt that. But hearing her say it to someone else, it burned in a different way. I didn't respond. I couldn't. Kurt, Gideon continued, come out here. Stay with me for a while. You don't owe her anything. You can get some distance. Clear your head. I considered it. Leaving the city. Vanishing for a while. No confrontation. No second chances. Just gone. But then I remembered something. A tiny detail I hadn't realized mattered until now. There was a red envelope on the hallway table this morning. Sealed. With my name on it. I hadn't opened it. I'd walked right past it, straight into the room where her affair came alive, and left without touching it. I told Gideon I'd call him back. Then I got in my car, turned around, and headed home. Because before I could vanish, I needed to know what was in that envelope. By the time I pulled back into the driveway, the sun had started its descent, painting the house in that golden light that makes everything look softer than it really is. The same porch where we used to drink wine in the fall. The same door I helped repaint last spring. Now it just looked like the front to a crime scene. A very polite, emotionally sanitized crime scene where the weapon was silence and the blood was trust. I didn't knock. It was still my house, after all. The door creaked just slightly as I pushed it open, and for a second, I thought maybe they were still inside, that maybe Gavin, the wet-haired towel wearer, was sitting there on my couch sipping my ginger ale. But the house was quiet. Too quiet. And cold, somehow. My eyes moved instinctively toward the hallway table. The red envelope was still there, exactly where I'd last seen it, centered, deliberate, unmissable. She'd left it for me like some kind of peace offering or maybe a trap. I wasn't sure which. I picked it up. It was heavier than I expected. Inside wasn't just a note. There was a key. Not a house key. A storage unit key. One of those small square silver ones you forget exist until someone hands you one like it holds a secret. The note was written in her handwriting. Curved, precise, emotionally distant even on paper. It read, If you're reading this, I know I can't justify what I did, but I didn't lie about everything. Please go to Unit 119 at Lockbox Storage. You deserve to see it. After that, I'll accept whatever you decide. That was it. No, I'm sorry. No, I love you. Just coordinates to the next chapter of her betrayal. I didn't know what I was expecting. Maybe some grand confession, or a half-hearted attempt to make it all poetic. But this was pure Elora, organized, strategic, emotionally withheld. The kind of person who'd rather let a note speak than her own voice. I stared at it for another long second, then tucked it into my pocket and left again without grabbing anything. No jacket. No bag. I didn't even check if she was upstairs. I just walked right out the door and got in the car. Lockbox Storage was about 15 minutes across town, in one of those weird in-between places with cracked sidewalks and flickering streetlights. I pulled into the lot, found Building C, and walked down the rows until I reached Unit 119. I stood there for a moment, key in hand, wondering what the hell I was about to walk into. A box of love letters? Photos? A divorce agreement already signed? My hand shook slightly as I turned the key. The metal door groaned upward, and I braced myself. But what I found inside wasn't anything I expected. It was a room full of my things. Old journals. Drawings I'd done in college. The sweater she said she lost years ago but swore was just gone in the laundry. My childhood baseball glove. Even the first mug I ever gave her chipped, slightly faded, but unmistakably there. Everything was laid out meticulously, like a shrine. And in the center of it all was a single photograph. Me, standing in front of our first apartment, smiling, holding a pizza box in one hand and a bouquet of slightly wilted flowers in the other. I remembered that day. She'd just gotten her first big freelance contract, and we were broke but happy. She took the photo and said, "This is what home looks like." I stood frozen. The air in the unit was musty, but suddenly my chest felt even heavier. Why? Why collect this? Why hide it? Was this guilt? Nostalgia? A backup plan? Suddenly, a sound. Behind me. I turned quickly, and there she was. Elora. No makeup. Hair pulled back. She looked tired. Smaller somehow. Like the version of her I hadn't seen in years. "I didn't know if you'd come," she said quietly. I swallowed. My voice barely came out. "You followed me here?" She nodded once. "I've been sitting in my car across the street for hours." My eyes burned, but I didn't blink. "What is this?" I asked, motioning to the shrine of a life I didn't know she remembered. She stepped inside slowly, as if the air around us might shatter. "I started keeping your things when I felt myself slipping. When I knew what I was doing was wrong. I'd come here sometimes, sit on that chair, and look at this photo. I thought maybe I could rewind something." My laugh came out bitter. "Rewind? Elora, you chose this. You chose him." She didn't defend herself, didn't shift blame, just nodded. "You're right," she said. I did. Silence stretched again. Then I whispered, "It didn't mean anything, huh?" She looked at the floor. I told myself that. Every time. I needed it to mean nothing so I could survive what I was doing to you. Those words. They didn't land like a confession. They landed like a sentence. And I realized this wasn't about me never being enough. It was about her never feeling anything was. I turned to walk away, but she grabbed my arm. "Curtis, what now?" I looked at her, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel desperate to fix it. I didn't feel like I owed her softness. I just said the one thing I could say honestly. "I don't know, but I don't think you get to ask me that right now." And I left her standing there, alone in a room full of all the pieces of me she had once loved but never protected. I didn't go home. I didn't go to Gideon's either. I drove to a 24-hour diner on the edge of town, one of those places where the booths are cracked vinyl and the waitresses call you Han, even if you look like you're about to fall apart. I sat in the farthest booth by the window, ordered a cup of black coffee I didn't want, and stared at the bubbles forming on the surface like they held some kind of message I couldn't read. My phone buzzed. Again. I turned its screen down on the table. I already knew who it was. Elora had texted me twice since I left the storage unit. Once to ask if I was safe. Once to say she'd respect my space. The irony of her suddenly respecting anything about me wasn't lost. The diner was nearly empty. One guy at the counter arguing quietly with himself. A teenage couple huddled over a milkshake. The waitress brought me my drink and asked if I wanted a menu. I shook my head. My stomach felt like it was full of rocks. I sat there until my coffee was cold, until the clock above the register ticked past midnight. I didn't cry. I didn't spiral. I just existed. And then, at 12:41 a.m., my phone buzzed again. This time, the screen showed something new. Unknown number. No name. No preview of the message. Just a ping and the vibration echoing through the fake marble tabletop. I hesitated before opening it. "You don't know me, but I think you deserve to know the truth about your wife and my husband. Please call me when you can. I'm not doing this to hurt you." Attached was a photo of Elora and Gavin in a restaurant I'd never been to. They weren't just sitting side by side. They were holding hands. Her head was on his shoulder. And there, clear as daylight, was a silver wedding band on his hand. The photo wasn't grainy or secretive. It wasn't a spy shot. It looked like someone they knew had taken it, like a proud moment worth capturing. She was smiling, not the fake smile she gave me in holiday cards, but a real one. The one I hadn't seen since our second anniversary. I read the message again. My husband. His wife. I suddenly realized I wasn't the only person Elora had shattered. I dialed the number with hands that shook like I was holding onto live wires. The phone rang once. Twice. Then a woman answered. "Hello." Her voice was calm. Too calm. "This is Curtis," I said, unsure if that meant anything to her. But she exhaled sharply, like she'd been holding her breath for days. "Thank you for calling me back," she said. "I wasn't sure you would. I didn't know who else to talk to," I replied honestly. "My name is Lila," she said. "Gavin's wife. Or I guess, maybe not for much longer." I didn't say anything. I found out last week, she continued. I followed him after one of his late office nights. I didn't know her name, but he kept calling her Ellie in a text. I put it together. Elora, I whispered, disgusted at how even her nickname made me feel foolish. I'm sorry to involve you, Lila said softly. I just couldn't sleep knowing someone else was being lied to the way I was. No, I said. You did the right thing. She went quiet again. Then she said something I didn't expect. They talked about moving in together. My heart twisted in my chest. What? I overheard a conversation when he was in the shower, Lila said. He told her he'd leave me after the holidays. Said you'd probably spiral, but that she could manage you. That she had you wrapped around her finger. That sentence was like a gut punch. She could manage me. Manage? I wasn't a husband to Elora. I was a variable. An obstacle to be navigated. Curtis, Lila said gently, I'm not just calling to hurt you. I want to ask you for something. I'm sorry if it's selfish. I blinked. Go on. I want to meet. I think. Maybe we can help each other figure out what the hell to do next. Because I don't know how to breathe through this. And you seem like someone who understands what that feels like. I looked around the empty diner. No one there knew my name. No one knew my marriage had cracked in half. I could have vanished, and no one would have asked why. Where are you? I asked. She gave me the name of a hotel. 10 minutes away. She said she'd meet me in the lobby. I left cash on the table, walked out without the coffee, and drove. Not because I needed revenge. Not because I was curious. But because for the first time since this began, I needed someone to look at me and say, I know how it feels to be lied to in your own house. I needed someone who could say, me too, and actually mean it. The hotel was one of those places business travelers use when every decent option is booked out. Beige walls. Dim lobby. A fake fireplace looping the same embers over and over on a mounted screen. There was a man asleep in an armchair near the vending machines and a front desk clerk scrolling endlessly on his phone, barely acknowledging me as I walked in. It was past 1 a.m. when I saw her. Lila. She was seated in a corner near the ice machine, wearing a gray hoodie and jeans, a tote bag crumpled at her side. She looked up and recognized me instantly, which I guess made sense. Elora had posted enough of our life online to give away the shape of me. She stood, unsure whether to offer a handshake or a hug. We awkwardly settled on a nod and sat opposite each other on those stiff hotel lobby chairs that feel like they're punishing you for sitting still too long. I didn't think you'd come, she said after a few seconds of silence. I didn't think I would either, I admitted. She looked older than I expected, not in a bad way. Just tired. You can tell a lot about someone by how tired they look at 1 in the morning. And the sadness around her eyes wasn't performative. It was familiar. I didn't want this to be real, she said. I really didn't. I nodded. Me either. Then she pulled out her phone. Tapped it. Turned the screen toward me. A video. Wait, she said, pausing it before pressing play. This might hurt. But you should see it. I hesitated, then nodded. She hit play. The footage was grainy, obviously taken from across a room. A restaurant again. Different from the one in the previous photo. This one was darker, more intimate. Elora was there. Gavin was too. They were sitting in a booth, leaning in close. You couldn't hear much, but at one point Elora touched his face, then leaned in and kissed him across the table. And then I heard it. Her voice. Muffled, but clear enough. I can't wait until I never have to lie to him again. Gavin chuckled. He's too soft to leave. You'll have to walk him through it. My stomach twisted. I stared at the screen for another 5 seconds before I held up my hand and turned away. Lila muted it. I recorded that 2 weeks ago, she said. I followed him. Sat 3 tables away. Ordered wine I didn't even drink. I was shaking so hard the server asked me if I needed a cab. I buried my face in my hands. She said she wasn't in love with him. Lila tilted her head. Did she say that to you before or after she said it didn't mean anything? I blinked, then laughed. It wasn't funny, but it came out anyway. God, I'm pathetic. No, she said firmly. You're just someone who believed her. Same as me. I looked up at her. Why are you doing this? I mean, why help me? She sighed and looked down at her hands. Because I spent 3 years believing my marriage was unshakable. I want to believe I'm not crazy for missing the signs. And maybe, because I need someone else who knows what it's like to unravel next to a person who sleeps soundly while lying to your face. We sat in silence for a while after that. It wasn't awkward. It was the kind of silence that can only exist between 2 people who were sitting in the wreckage of something they thought would last forever. Eventually, she asked, so what are you going to do? And I hated that I didn't have an answer. I hated that even after everything, the lies, the affair, the storage unit, the video, a part of me still had a quiet, pathetic little voice in the back of my skull saying, maybe there's something left to save. I don't know, I said. What about you? I'm going to file, she said with certainty. I already met with a lawyer. I swallowed hard. That fast? She shook her head. It's not fast. It's just overdue. I think I knew 6 months ago. I just didn't want to be alone. That hit me in the chest. I didn't reply. Then she reached into her tote bag and pulled out something unexpected. A letter. I wasn't going to give this to you, she said, placing it on the table. But I found it in his work bag. It's from Alora. I didn't open it. I figured you had a right to read your own humiliation. My hands didn't want to touch it. My mind didn't want to read it. But I took it anyway. It was dated 2 weeks ago. Handwritten. Curtis. I don't know how this ends, and I'm scared of what I'm becoming. I miss the version of me who used to love you honestly. But I haven't been that person in a long time. You haven't seen something in me I thought I lost. Maybe that makes me a monster. Maybe it makes me weak. But when I'm with him, I feel like someone new. Not better. Just less broken. I don't know if I'll leave you. I don't know if I can. But if I do, it won't be because of him. It'll be because I stopped knowing how to love you the way you deserve. I'm sorry. I think I'm still in love with the idea of who we were. That was it. Not even a full page. I stared at the signature. Not love, Elora. Not yours. Just her name. Cold. Final. Lila didn't say anything else. She just let me read in silence. After a long pause, I looked at her and said, I think she wrote this hoping I'd never see it. I think she wrote it hoping you'd let her go before she had to make a choice, Lila replied. I exhaled. My chest felt heavier than it had all week. But for once, the weight came with clarity. She doesn't get to decide anymore, I said. And for the first time in days, I actually meant it. I didn't sleep that night. Lila offered me the extra bed in her room, but I couldn't lie down. I couldn't close my eyes without hearing those words again. He's too soft to leave. You'll have to walk him through it. Over and over. That phrase didn't just sting. It gutted something in me that I didn't even know had survived this long. By sunrise, I was back in my car, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing holding me together. I didn't go home right away. I drove by the lake where Alora and I used to picnic. I passed the grocery store where we'd once argued for 20 minutes over the best kind of peanut butter. I even parked across from the street where she used to catch the bus before we could afford 2 cars. Everything in this damn town had a memory carved into it, and all of them were soaked in a lie now. Around 9 a.m., I finally pulled into the driveway. Her car was gone. The porch looked the same. The mail still in the box. Wind chimes dancing like nothing had happened. I let myself in. Same creak of the door. Same scent of that citrus candle she always lit in the mornings. And for a second, God help me, I forgot everything. I just stood there, like a man returning home from a business trip, expecting to hear her humming in the kitchen. But then I remembered, I don't live here anymore. Not really. I moved slowly through the house. Nothing had changed. Not visibly. But I could feel it. There's a silence that only exists in houses where trust used to live. In the bedroom, the bed was made. Too neatly. As if she knew I might come back and she didn't want to give me the satisfaction of seeing it undone. On the nightstand, her phone charger was missing. Her side of the closet was half empty. She'd started packing. That's when the front door opened. I turned. Footsteps. Keys jingling. Then her voice. Curtis. She sounded surprised. She hadn't expected me to return. Or maybe, in her mind, I was supposed to slink away and nurse my wounds somewhere else. I stepped out into the hallway, and when she saw me, she flinched. Not dramatically, just a tiny shift in her stance, like she wasn't sure if I was real or just her guilt taking human form. You're back, she said, and it wasn't a question. More like a failed attempt to sound composed. I never really left, I said quietly. You just stopped seeing me. She looked down. I didn't know how to fix it. You didn't want to fix it, I corrected. You wanted me to make the decision, so you didn't have to be the bad guy. She leaned against the wall, arms crossed tight. You think this was easy for me? I blinked, stunned. Easy? You carried on a year-long affair in secret while kissing me goodnight. Don't insult both of us by pretending you struggled. There was a long pause. Then she said something that made my jaw tighten. I didn't think you'd be this angry. I almost laughed. You've always believed I'd forgive anything, haven't you? She didn't answer. Just stared at the floor like she was waiting for the conversation to end itself. I pulled out my phone and opened the photo Lila sent. I held it up. This is from 3 months ago. He was still telling his wife he was just working late. You were smiling like you just won a prize. Was I supposed to be proud that you managed to lie so convincingly? Her face paled. Where did you get that? From the woman who has more integrity than the two of you combined. She swallowed. Her mouth opened, but I cut her off. And then there's the letter, I said, pulling it from my coat pocket and tossing it onto the table between us. The one you gave him. Not me. She stared at it like it might explode. But she didn't touch it. Elora, I said, my voice low, do you even understand what you've done? Not just to me, but to yourself. That got her attention. She blinked. You had someone who loved you unconditionally, who bent over backward trying to make you feel whole. And you buried that in hotel sheets and locked storage units like it was nothing. Like I was nothing. I was lost, she muttered. I didn't know who I was anymore. You knew enough to plan the deception down to the second, I replied. You were never lost. You were just afraid of standing still. Then came the part one didn't expect. She finally walked up to me, close enough that I could smell her perfume, not the one she used to wear when she was happy with me. This one was new. Synthetic. Like all of this. I broke it off with him, she said quietly. I tilted my head. Before or after I found out? She looked away. Right. I told him I couldn't go through with it, she continued. That I didn't want to leave you. But you already had. She looked at me. Really looked at me. And I saw something new in her eyes, not guilt. Not regret. Fear. Curtis, she whispered. I don't want to be alone. And there it was. The truth. She didn't want me back. She just didn't want to be without someone. You know, I said, voice trembling, when I walked out of here that day, I thought maybe, just maybe, you'd chase after me. Not with words. With something real. But all I got was silence. Then a note. Then a second-hand confession from the wife of your affair partner. I stepped back. I'm done being the backup plan. Her lip quivered. She didn't cry. Because Elora never cried when it mattered. She only cried when it would save her. I turned to leave. But before I reached the door, she said one more thing. Where will you go? I paused, my hand on the doorknob. I'm going to start over. Somewhere your name doesn't mean anything. Somewhere I don't wake up every day wondering what lie you're planning next. And I walked out. Not broken. Not healed. But finally moving in a direction that wasn't backward. 3 weeks passed. 3 long, heavy, dragging weeks where my days blurred into one another and my nights were spent staring at ceilings in unfamiliar places. I crashed at Gideon's for a bit, slept on a pull-out mattress that had the spine of a medieval torture device, then rotated through cheap Airbnbs and an extended-stay motel on the edge of town. The kind where the vending machine eats your dollar every time and the guy in the next room coughs like he's been dying slowly since 2003. I avoided the house. I didn't want to know if Elora was still there. I didn't want to see the curtains open or the porch light on and imagine her inside, living a normal life as if the last 10 years hadn't been burned to ash. I was waiting for the final push, the piece of this whole mess that would finally let me stop replaying her voice, her letter, her face when she said she didn't want to be alone. And then, out of nowhere, Lila called me again. Her voice was different this time. Shaky. Uneven. She didn't say hello. She didn't ask how I was. She just launched into it. You need to see something. That was it. She texted me a location. An address I didn't recognize. No explanation. No time. Just coordinates. I almost didn't go. Part of me was tired of surprises. Tired of Elora-related anything. But there was something in Lila's voice that had my pulse spiking. The address was a building on the edge of a business park. Glass windows, bland beige siding. I pulled into the lot and saw Lila standing there already, arms crossed, pacing like she wanted to throw her phone into traffic. She waved me over without a word. What is this? I asked as I got out. She didn't answer immediately. Just handed me her phone. An email was open. Sent to her by accident. From Elora. To Gavin. Subject. No subject. Body. Curtis is unraveling. I think he's close to doing something drastic. If he shows up again, just play innocent. I'll handle Lila. Attached was a voice note. Elora's voice. Crystal clear. He still thinks I'm ashamed of what happened. But he doesn't get it. I need it out. Gavin gave me a door. And now that Curtis is gone, I can start over. He'll come crawling eventually. He always does. He needs closure more than I need forgiveness. I stared at the phone, my mind refusing to let the words sink in. I think she meant to send it to someone else, Lila said, barely keeping her voice steady. But I got it. By accident. and I figured you needed to know before she rewrote the story entirely. Closure, I muttered. She thinks I'm just biding time. She's setting the stage, Lila said, for a narrative where she's the one who left because you were unstable. She's manipulating her next chapter before the ink on the last one even dries. I stared at the phone a few seconds longer, then handed it back. I should have seen this coming, I said. Every move she's made has been calculated, right down to the envelope, the storage unit, the timing of her so-called confession. It's all been designed to control perception. And Gavin? I asked. Lila nodded toward the building behind us. He's in there. Couples therapy. With her. I didn't believe it either until I saw them walking together. My stomach turned. She hadn't ended it. She hadn't chosen anything. She was keeping both of us on a leash until one broke first. Let's go, I said suddenly. Lila blinked. Where? Home. She followed me without questioning it. When we pulled into the driveway 15 minutes later, Elora's car was back. Lights were on. The porch looked untouched, like she'd paused time. I walked up to the door and didn't knock. I used my old key. She never changed the locks. I guess she never really believed I was gone. She was sitting on the couch, legs tucked under her, scrolling on her phone like it was any other Thursday. Her head snapped up when she saw me. Curtis. I stepped in, calm, steady, but cold. You've been busy, I said. Her eyes flicked to the hallway. This isn't a good time. No, I said. It's the perfect time. Lila walked in behind me. Elora stood like someone just pulled the emergency brake on her fantasy life. You said it didn't mean anything, I told her. And maybe, just maybe, I could have believed that. But now I know it meant everything. Because this is who you are when no one's watching. Elora opened her mouth, but I kept going. You tried to twist the narrative. Tell Gavin I was unraveling. That I'd come crawling back like some pathetic dog looking for scraps. I didn't. Don't. I cut in. You don't get to rewrite history just because you're afraid of looking like the villain in someone else's story. She looked at Lila, then back at me, searching for something sympathy, an escape, an angle. But there was nothing left for her to manipulate. You know what hurts most? I said. You didn't destroy us for love. You didn't even destroy us for happiness. You did it because you were bored. And when you had the chance to walk away with grace, you tried to set the fire twice. Elora was frozen. No tears. No excuses this time. Lila stepped forward. We're not here for a confrontation, she said. We're here to let you know, neither of us is playing along anymore. I turned to leave. But before I reached the door, I looked back one last time. You said I always come crawling, I told her. But here's the truth, you needed me to. Because if I walked away for good, it meant everything you did actually mattered. Then I stepped out. And this time, I slammed the door behind me. I thought the final confrontation would give me closure. It didn't. Not right away, at least. When I left that house for the last time, really left, not with some false hope or lingering guilt, I expected the weight on my chest to vanish. I thought walking out would feel like stepping into sunlight. But healing isn't cinematic. It's slow. It's messy. It's making eggs at 2 a.m. in a borrowed kitchen and crying over nothing while the coffee burns. Lila and I sat in the car for a long time afterward. Neither of us spoke. There was nothing left to say about Elora or Gavin. That part of our lives, those chapters built on denial and betrayal, were over. And it wasn't about what they'd done anymore. It was about what we were going to do with the blank pages ahead. I moved out of town 2 weeks later. Gideon had a friend in Asheville who needed help managing a property. It wasn't glamorous, an old bookstore tucked between a barber shop and a bakery, but the rent was cheap and the attic apartment above it was quiet. I started organizing shelves, fixing up the broken lighting, helping host book readings on weekends. For the first time in years, I did something without asking if it was enough for someone else. Lila and I kept in touch, not constantly, not in some codependent post-trauma mess. Just honestly. We sent each other updates, photos of stupid things like birds fighting over breadcrumbs, or how bad hotel coffee really was. She signed her divorce papers a month after mine came through. Her message to me that day said, "It's finally not a lie when I say I'm free." I framed that. Not because it was romantic. Because it was real. One day, about 3 months into my new life, I got a package. No return address. Inside was the old photo Elora had kept in the storage unit, the one of me holding a pizza box and wilted flowers, smiling like I didn't know how fragile happiness could be. Attached was a note, short and sharp. You deserved better than what I gave you. I know that now. No signature. I didn't need one. I slid the photo into the bottom drawer of my desk. not out of bitterness, but because I had finally learned, not everything that breaks you has to follow you. That night, I walked down the street to the bakery. The owner, a sweet woman named Jo, had started giving me leftover pastries at closing time. I sat outside, munching on a croissant that was more butter than bread, and watched the world move around me. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't thinking about Alora or what I'd lost. I was thinking about what I could build, who I might become, and how sometimes the most important thing you can do, the bravest, softest, most radical thing, is to finally say, that chapter's over, and I'm still here.